I was a kid. I mean, I had problems in school, man. I had to get back in stuff with vision and glasses and stuff. I was picked on because, I was cross-eyed stuff. So I had a real rough in school growing up when I first, when I got into middle school, it was a lot rougher. And back then, the teachers, they just seen me as a nuisance in class and stuff. They just didn't want to, they kind of failed me, the school system failed me as a child. And so I ended up going to a Catholic school, and I didn't get in trouble in the school. I would just at home, I would act out, and I was threatened with this a few times. And finally, me and my mom sat down one time on the front porch, and she was telling me that this was going to happen. And I was kind of sad about how I had treated my mom and my dad and my sister and my brother. And so I kind of forced her into sending me there. I wanted better for myself too, which I didn't know I was getting my or anything. But
yeah, did they tell you it was Bethel, or did they say what? I mean, did they say it's Bethel? They showed what it was or anything?
No, I know I seen a brochure. They had and actually I still have the brochure, but it's somewhere, like I said, my mom kept everything as when we was kids. Yeah, they just told me they was going to, me and my dad and my brother was going to take a trip down there to check it out. And, I was, my dad was military, so I kind of wanted to do, I thought this was going to give me, I don't know. I was just trying to be like my dad, I guess. But anyways, we ended up going down there to Mississippi, me and my dad. I got pictures of the whole trip down there. And we ended up at Bethel, and I ended up on Brother Fountain's doorstep. When I got there, they were really nice people and everything. And then it was about time for them to leave. My brother and my dad stayed there talking to them. And I remember they took me up to the barracks, and I remember the window and everything. I could see my dad's vehicle out there and everything. And at that time, they're trying to, right off the bat, they're trying to get you to stop saying I, me, you, all that stuff. It was this cadet, this fellow cadets. And that's when it really started, man. They were shaving my head, getting me ready and stuff. And that's where a lot of the abuse started, man. It was, it went from like little slaps to the back of the head to full blown punches to the back of the head to to being thrown down to getting worn out to just all that stuff. I mean,
yeah. Was that so when your dad took you with your brother, you said Fountain was real nice, I'm sure. So what was Fountain saying, and like what was he doing when your dad first showed up with you?
Well, they all greeted me, really. I mean, they greeted me at the door. I mean, I got pictures of me right on his footstep right before I'm going in the door. And they just greeted me. I mean, we sat down and they told us what we did. They said they had a real good, church and all this stuff. And I was kind of excited, really, to tell you the truth. I was nervous, I was a kid, but I was kind of excited to see what this place had to offer, And
how old were you?
I want to say I was in the range of like, 12 to, about 12. I was probably 12 years old. So I mean,
yeah. So eventually did your dad just say goodbye and they left you, and they went on and just sort of left you there?
Yep.
Yeah.
And I remember when they were driving down the road, that's when the real verbal stuff started, the parents are gone, they're leaving you, and it was a lot of the senior cadets at first, they were told to do these things to us, I guess. But I spent like the first part of it up in the middle of the Suave, or not, the middle of the Suave, I believe, doing exercises and stuff. And they were trying to beat I don't know if you remember that, but I, me, you couldn't say none of that stuff. You had to refer to yourself as this cadet or this, and I understand that they're trying to take the I out of everything. It's a team thing, but
so what was your first day? So what sort of happened after they dropped off? Just sort of walk me through just sort of like what the first day was like.
Well, I started my day throwing up and I ended my day throwing up. So I started my day when I got up. The first thing I did was got dressed. Everybody was in my face yelling at me, and we'd go outside and I'd start rolling in that field out there, rolling back and forth, back and forth. And if I didn't throw up, it would continue until I threw up. I mean, that's just how it was. And it was real hard on me, man. It was mentally straining, I guess, and I was just thinking, all this is going to be over with once I, graduate out of orientation and stuff. But crazy is I forgot to tell you this. So when I first got there, actually, they did all this stuff to me, but I ended up going to church that night. They had a church service up there. I remember it was dark, and they had a bonfire going. And I got there, and they had my stuff, and I had a New King James Bible. And I'm telling you, that's when I learned about witching. Like I would rather have a stick this big around than a stick this big, because you know what I mean. I tried to pick a little stick thinking it wouldn't hurt, but that thing would wrap around you, you know, when he would whip you with it. But he whipped me over having a New King James Version Bible, and he burned it right in front of me. And I remember my parents spent quite a bit of money on that thing. And
Wow.
had
So
my name.
he switched you because you had a King James version instead of the original King James, that you had the New King James.
And the only reason I had that is I didn't, I was a little kid, I didn't, and all that, how the, you know what I mean? It was a Bible, you know, that I could, you know, at that age. So
So going to real quick again. So just go over what switching was. How did the use getting switched? I mean, I was there. I got switched. I don't think anybody went through without getting switched. But you got switched on your first day for having a New King James Bible, which I haven't heard that before. That's pretty freaking extreme. But what was switching? Why did they switch you? What did they do with it? How did it work?
Man, if one of the senior cadets just didn't like you, I mean, and he complained about you or anything, they would just, I mean, if Brother Fountain was involved, he would have us go pick a switch. And if you picked a small one, I'm telling you, those hurt worse than the big ones. So I learned that real quick. So it was just over, stupid stuff, talking out of line, just, stuff that you should get a slap on the hand for. Stuff. You got in trouble at school, you know what I mean? So, and if he got involved, I mean, he was a part of the switching. So, and it wasn't no normal switching. I mean, it was until he got tired, until he couldn't switch no more, or the switch broke, or. But I remember that thing wrapped around my belly. You know, it would hit my private parts, leave blood blisters on my privates. I mean, all over the belly. And then drill instructor he took advantage of that, because if he knew that he was going to grab, he was going to grab you. I mean, that's what he did. Come up, grab your junk, kick you in the leg, bite your ear. I didn't know you could pop an ear. You could pop an ear. But he got to you, he make your ear pop like a knuckle. But that's just,
who was Brother Fountain and who was not? What were their roles of the two of
Brother
them?
Fountain was the preacher, the preacher, the owner of the place, and drill instructor Knott was the drill instructor. I mean, he took care of us kids, made us, we lived with him. I mean, he lived with us inside the barracks, and he made certain kids stay in his room with him. I mean, not gonna say no names, but I mean, I'm sure this has been talked of before. I mean, but he would just choose certain cadets, and they would stay in his room for a while with him. They call him the house mouse. And
when you first got dropped off and your parents left, you kind of got like acclimated to it. What was your thoughts, just like being there compared to home? I mean, what was kind of your impression of it, of where you're at? Like, just kind of what were you thinking, like, once you realized you were there?
Well, I can't say what I really was thinking, but I knew I was screwed at that point. I knew I was screwed. I mean, I knew I was screwed. I mean, I knew that this was not what I thought, and and I knew if my parents knew what was going on, just in the first week alone, man, just that I wouldn't have been there, because I witnessed a lot of stuff, a lot of kids getting beat stuff. I mean, it wasn't just. I think when I was on orientation, we had a lot of kids running away and stuff, and they had these lights at the end of the squaves. They were called jack-off lights, and they would have fire. They had two guys usually on fire watch, and they would walk the dorms. I mean, on different shifts. And it always be somebody just darting out trying to run away. I mean, and then it was like somebody that was in prison, and they had the hound dogs. They would have four wheelers and they had dogs. I mean, and pit bulls. I think one of the dogs' name was Polo. I mean, he had pit bulls. Drill instructor Knott did. I mean, they were well trained dogs, which they were abused too. But
yeah, did anybody ever, when people would run, did they? I mean, I
Yeah, I
know when
can't.
I was there, I saw some people run. So what would say, did people ever make it away? How far did they get? What would happen when they got caught? Did you know if anybody ever made it out of there
Uh,
or didn't come back?
Man, some of them would make it. The way they made it out of there is they would run away, and it might be a week or two, whatever, till they found them. But they'd eventually find them, and they'd bring them back and beat them, and they would end up getting some kind of significant damage to their body or something, to where they would, have to take them to the hospital. And it seemed like anytime like that happened, you never see the people. Then people never come back. So I remember one time we was down there. There was a kid, he used to do laundry, and he was accused of some stuff that I don't think he did, but and it was Brother Fountain's wife that accused him of this stuff. And I remember they threw him back on orientation. He was a corporal at the time, and he was that's all he did was he did people's laundry. He did the Fountain's laundry. They had a little wash house out there, and I have photos of that too. And he ran off, and I guess he had broke into an old lady's trailer, and I guess she was familiar with the property, the home and all that stuff, and she had contacted the school, and they went there and got him. I remember that he was wearing a dress when he came back with his fatigues and stuff on, and they beat him until he pooped his pants. I mean, and it was probably the first time. That was, I want to say, it was kind of during when I first got there, and that was when I realized that something was majorly wrong, because they had these hoses, and they would duct tape them, and they had a key on the end of it, and it's the fire watch. That was their, if somebody ran away, you was told, like, I've seen on the videos, beat them but don't kill them. And when I say they beat them, he would make them kids beat those guys. I mean, it wasn't just Brother Fountain. It was not Brother Fountain, but not. He was forcing those kids to do that stuff to the other kids. I mean, to beat them.
Did you ever try and run away?
No, I knew better. I knew better, and I was in Oklahoma. I was, I kind of had a sheltered life, I guess, and and there's no way because it was nothing to me. That was like a gigantic force. It felt like we was in the middle of nowhere, and any direction you ran, you were just going to be running into the woods. So
Getting bit by alligators and chased by who knows what out there, huh?
Man, them ant piles. You can tell me when I was on orientation, they like I said, they trying to get me to roll in one of those those fire ant piles. They've been scattered everywhere. And I remember I rolled in one of those bad boys. I didn't really get stung that bad, but I'm telling you, them things were all over me. I mean,
Yeah, had you roll in them knowing that they were there?
yeah, they had me rolling up and down the field. I mean, you could see where they were placed in the yard, but once you have rolled for so long, you just forget where you're at. You don't even know what direction you're going, dude. Like, even when you stand up, you don't know which way. I mean, you know what I mean? And yeah, they would force you to roll into one. They would just kind of kick you in that direction, and you would end up rolling in one of those ant piles, and all hell would break loose. So
Yeah, those things are wicked. You got a picture of them. I'll put that picture
yeah,
on when you're talking about that. But I remember those ant hills, man. I mean, we would sometimes, those things were nasty. Those ants were wicked little ants, and they were like thousands of them. You'd accidentally hit one or knock one over. Next thing you know, they're all over you, just biting the shit out of you.
what's crazy, man, is all the pictures I have taken have meanings. That pond, when I took the picture of the pond, that was for a reason. Those ant piles, that was for a reason. It was all these memories I was going to have when I came back. I never thought I was going to be able to talk about this or tell somebody. I was just a kid, but I knew that I would remember that stuff by taking those pictures, and that's the only way I can reckon why I would took the pictures of the ant piles and stuff, and was for that reason, and
So, what are some of the memories of the pictures you have?
which one do you want to hear? I mean, a lot of them.
I mean, tell me some. I know you mentioned the pond, or just go through some of the pictures you have, and I'll,
Yeah, the pond. They actually, I've been drowned in that thing a few times, and I want to. One time, I don't know if Noel remembers this way, but I remember me and Noel had found some fishing line, and we was sitting on that dock out there. They had a dock that ran out there on it, and we had caught these. Well, we baited the hooks and stuff, and we left them in the water. Well, the next day, we was going to come back and check the hooks, and the next day when I came back, I don't think Noel was with me because he don't quite remember, and I don't remember if he was with me or not. But I remember walking back, and he was standing there with that line and the fish on there. I don't know how he found out. Maybe he was watching us the day before or something. I don't know, but we thought we had to hit it pretty well. But anyways, he had the fish, and then that's when it started. He, I was pushed in the water, and then he held my head under the water until I blacked out, and then brought me up, and I set up, and I remember I was coughing and stuff, and it was kind of like a game for him. Like he would like tell you like good job, you know, after something like that would happen, you know, and I think it was to, you know, brainwash us kind of like to think that, and that had to do, you know. It happened quite a bit. I mean,
that was not that did that.
Yeah, and I know there's other people same. I mean, even in the swimming pool they would make it, you know, tread water for hours. And when I say hours, like, you know, 4 to 5 hours sometimes. I remember there's times where Bubba had to come out there and get onto a drill instructor not for some of that stuff. Even it was even too much for them, you know what I mean? So, but man, drill instructor not was evil guy, man. I mean,
yeah. Why would they do that? Like drowning kids in the pond and stuff like that. Why do you think they did that?
Some of it's because he didn't like it. Maybe some of it was maybe when he was in the military, they did this stuff to him. I don't know, man. He was trying to make us into something we was too young to be, you know, like it was like we was in, you know, sometimes like we was in the military. It was, I mean, they did this kind of shit to special forces and stuff, you know, like, and he was doing this stuff to us. So I really don't know, man, like just why he did this, because I wouldn't understand why anybody would make somebody go through that, especially doing it to a child, you know. But I remember you know, after a while, you kind of wanted to get it over with, because it was the anticipation, knowing that you were going to go through that shit again. You would just kind of want to go through it just to get it over with, because you know, after you did that, they're going to be nice to you for a couple of days, and you know, and they were going to kind of praise you for doing that, going through that. So it always started as something I'm being mad about, and then it ended up being, you know, oh, you did a good job, you know. And I think it's just how they brainwashed us to where we didn't say nothing. Because there's a lot of the stuff that I thought I could tell Brother Fountain at first before I really knew, you know, even though Brother Fountain had, you know, switched me and stuff like that. I was just thinking maybe he's just one of these hardcore, you know, Southern Baptists, you know, and that's how they do it down here kind of type deal. But there was a lot of times that I was wanting to tell off on him, and I actually told on him for some of the abuse that he did to us, and just the beating and stuff. And Brother Fountain always thought he was going to handle it. And I knew after that not to tell him no more, because it went back to the drunk or not, and then everybody got in trouble for it. It wasn't just you getting in trouble for it. The whole barracks are going to pay for it, you know, by standing online. You know, we'd stand online for 18 hours at a time. I mean, they turn all the heaters on, and I remember just moving around to where you get in trouble, where you go down to do push-ups, you know, but I remember, man, they used to make us go on these 8-mile runs like all the time. I mean, we would run for hours, dude, hours. And just the physical labor they made us do. I mean, we was like slaves. We was Brother Fountain slaves, pretty much what we were. To the point to where to cut costs on level on the road, we would go out there for, you know, all day. There were days we wouldn't, because I knew the cement was going to be coming out to be poured and stuff, and we'd just be marching on that road just to flatten up, you know, that main road that was coming to the house. We was out there marching it just to flatten the level of the roads. But you know, the beat stuff. I mean, he would sick these dogs on. He would say Yoko. He was Yoko Schmiedes. I can't quite remember, but he taught all these dogs German, and he would sick these dogs on you. And I'm talking about, I had to get stitches in my genitals because of this.
That's not. I don't mean to laugh because it's funny, but that sucks ass.
And truthfully, I can't even remember if I got stitches, or if it was. I mean, I want to say it was some super. I can't remember, but it was embarrassing. I mean, when that happened to me, his wife and everybody was involved. I've never, you know, the only person that's seen me naked before would be my mom, you know, and so I remember that's how I recall. I remember that part of it is because, you know, I had to go through through that with him. But yeah,
he sick the dog on you, and the dog bit your nuts. Like that reminds me of what's that old baseball show where it's all sick balls, Chopper. So what do you? So real quick on the, I know because that's been mentioned a lot, and the dogs. Polo's Polo's the one that gets mentioned a lot. I think you got a picture of Polo. So what would he? It was not. What would he use the dog for? Like, just go over what Polo was and how he'd use a dog.
So it'd just be, random times that we'd be out there, doing stuff, but it'd be drill instructor night. He'd come up behind you. He would knee in the thigh, and then he would bite you by the ear to make you stand back up. Cause you get kneed in the leg, you kind of want to go down, but he'd bite you in the ear and you'd want to stand back up.
Not would bite you?
Oh yeah, he'd bite you on the ear. He would pop your ear or bite it. I mean, I think there's several kids that got ear, injuries from him doing that crap. But yeah, he would. Then he would tell you, you better run. So after a while, you just knew to run. I never got away with it from the dog, but I don't know. I mean, that dog would just get you. And then if you would try to fight the dog or try to fight back or anything, you was going to get your ass whipped. I mean, severely whipped. He cared about them dogs more than he did us. I mean,
you mean
are you there?
As the dog's attacking you, if you fought back to the dog, not would punish you for hurting his dog?
Uh-huh. You was not allowed to do nothing. Because he would let it tear you up for a second, and then he was able to get the dog off. The dog listened to him. I mean, that dog was sharp. I mean, it was. I mean, there's guys that there's law enforcement that don't have canine dogs that listen that good. I mean, those dogs, that dog would get you. I mean, and I can't remember. I'm sure Corbett and all them can tell me exactly how they said it, but it was Yoko Schmides. When you heard him say that, you better run. So
that was one of his arsenals for punishment, a pit bull.
He had a few of them, and he had a few of those dogs. I mean, he had and I can't remember the guy's name, but he had one kid that was allowed to go back there. I was allowed to go with him a couple times, but it was way off up past the chow hall. Remember where the chow hall was? It was somewhere off in the woods back there, but they would, and he fed those dogs, like people said, gunpowder. I've told people that for years, gunpowder and like whey protein and stuff, like to get them big. I mean, these dogs are big. Some of the pictures that I have of Polo, it shows him when he was a little smaller, but some of those dogs, yeah, were like 70 pounds. I mean, they were big old pit bulls. I mean, 78-pound dogs. And for a pit bull back then, that was huge. I mean, I don't think people had pit bulls and stuff. They did all that stuff they do now with them. But
when I hear you tell the story, and obviously, we lived it, and I've talked to a lot of people, so I definitely know that what you're telling is 100% true. But what responses have you gotten from people like your friends and family over the years? Have as you've told them some of this stuff, what sort of responses have you gotten from people?
Well, when I got out, I didn't really talk about it with nobody. My dad knew, and my mom. My dad knew what was happening because we'll get to that part of the story. But my dad knew, and when I got out, my brother had passed away, so I wasn't trying to burden my parents with that stuff. So I kind of held it in, and I went a few years, like I don't know how many years, doing okay and stuff, and then it started like really, just the trauma from it. I had separation anxiety. I had, just all kinds of trauma from that crap that, affected my life for a long time, to this day. I mean, but yeah, I know, I try to find people, and I'd go through these little spouts to where, I'd go on these bingers and stuff, and I'd get all sad and depressed and stuff, and people just thought I was doing that for attention. And maybe I was, but the thing is, I was just trying to get people to listen to me. I'd tell them about it, stuff, and these stories are so outlandish. Who's going to believe you? Nobody ever believed me about that stuff. I had I think I had one buddy that his name was he always believed me, but just people not believing you about something like this, and not be able to talk about it, to people, and I never wanted to go to a psychiatrist after this. I've never been diagnosed with nothing, and I have a big problem with people telling me what's wrong with me, like I don't like to hear that stuff, because I've been so long trying to do it by myself, and that's been, until now, until I found you guys.
So how did you, how did you eventually get out? I guess go over that a little bit. Like, did you eventually become a senior cadet or anything, or were you
I never was.
Yeah,
I never was. Man, I was picked on a lot, man. So there was no way that I was ever going to move up. I was young, but I really was probably disliked by most people in there. I mean, not saying I was disliked, but everybody had their groups, you know what I mean? The people they could trust and all that stuff. So, I mean, I didn't really have but maybe one friend in there. And I was just trying to fly by. I mean, I just tried to fly under the radar. Didn't want to be, targeted and stuff like that. So, but no, I never moved up the ranks or anything like that. But
yeah, real quick too. Because I know you've mentioned this to me a bunch. I know you've mentioned the friend that you have. So if you have people watching, do you just want to talk about the one friend that you have?
yeah, I'm going to start off saying Ron Coleman, you saved my life, man. He's the reason I'm out. I mean, he did a lot for me. I mean, I would have never told my parents what he told my parents, but he went on vacation with me. We went to Pensacola. We went seeing the USS Alabama, and before we went, we was getting our uniforms pressed and boots shined and all that stuff. And I had went into the shower, and I got out. And one of the only times I ever seen my dad crying was when I got out of there, and I knew what he had done. And I thought, and I was so scared. And I think I tried to fight him over it because I was scared I was going to get in trouble over it. And then my dad made me realize, he's like, John, you're not going back, But what broke my heart the most was we left him there. My dad promised he was going to get him out of there. And I think my mom and them did help at the very end, I guess. But we contacted church because he was sent through a church. And Brother Fountain, with him being a preacher and having a good mouth and stuff, could mislead people. But this breaks my heart that he never got out because I didn't know what else what happened to him. I remember staying up for a long time just thinking about that stuff, whatever happened to him. But I want to say years later, I did come in contact with him, and that's what I remember. He said he was playing hockey. That's all I can remember. And he was from Colorado. I believe he went to Columbine. And you know what that all entails from the 90s. I mean, when, he was beat by Bubba and Josh Fountain. And he was bedridden for, like, I want to say a month or two. I mean, they ended up, like, they almost leg. They ended up kicking a big old boil. He had a big old blood boil on his leg that got infected real bad. And then Baptista, I'd like to see him one day. I haven't heard from him. He's a good guy. I mean, he got me through a lot of stuff, and I still remember that. That was the first cadet I ever drilled to. Was said, say, Sir Cadet, may request permission to speak to Senior Cadet Baptista. Sir, made this cadet failed catch. Use the head, sir. So it wasn't just one person using the head. When you were inside there, it was when you asked for permission, they got everybody up and everybody had to use the restroom. Like it was a rigmarole. Like you just couldn't go use the bathroom at leisure. Now on the weekends they had some free time that we got, but other than that, dude, I mean it was 6.5 days a week that we was drilling and working and that kind of stuff.
So go back, tell me a little bit how you ended up getting out of there.
So they had my mom wrote code words, so numbers and symbols would mean letters and stuff. And she would send me a little bit of the letter at a time. And the last letter I got, she told me, she told me a date and it said daddy. So I knew that date my dad was going to come down here. I guess she had some kind of idea of what's going on. And maybe she did some of her own investigation about the school and then found out stuff. I don't know to this day. But my dad came down and was going to the USS Alabama. Sorry, I got off track. But went seeing the USS Alabama. Well, before we went and seeing that, I was going to go get dressed and stuff. So I was in a shower. When I came back out, like I said, Coleman was he had told my dad everything, and my dad he yanked me out of there. I mean, he got me out, and I remember driving Coleman back. It was the hardest thing I ever did was drive him back. But they were threatened. Brother Fountain was threatened. I believe and I forgot all about this. He was threatening my dad with kidnapping charges. We took Coleman, so that's why we didn't take Coleman. And then I remember my mom and them stayed in contact with his parents and stuff. They tried. I mean, I think that eventually he did get out because of some of the stuff, but I think Child Protective Services were up there investigating kind of stuff. They would stop by here and there, and it was nothing. They would just take glances. They didn't do nothing for us, man. Like they should have seen some abuse and stuff that these kids were going through. Like they just didn't care. I mean, Mississippi failed us, dude, and straight up. And
Question I have, I guess, kind of the last question is, just tell me how you think, how did Bethel affect you to this day? How did it affect you when you got out? How did it affect you to this day? Good, bad, ugly? What would you say that you got from Bethel and what it did?
it stunted my mental growth. It really did. It stunted my mental growth. Just man, it I was an kind of outcast. I mean, I don't know. I was socially, like, I had problems being around people, anger problems. One minute I was like they cut that my mom. I was Jacqueline Hyde, dude. Like one minute I was happy, one minute I was completely depressed and sad and shit. Like it really affected me like a lot. It's taken me, and to this day, like I said, I've been fighting, drinking, and a lot of the demons. And it's just certain times now. I'm getting older now and stuff. And it's just it takes sometimes it hits me, and then I go on these binges, and I self-destruct. I've self-mutilated myself. I've been through a lot, man. Just trying to. When I got into high school, though, dude, things changed for me. I realized that it was easier for me just to do the right thing, and try not to get in trouble. That's when I really kind of started growing up. But then when I graduated high school, like it still had effect and a hold on me. It was hard for me to hold a job down because I was drinking and partying, and I guess just self-destructing myself. I mean, it's caused a lot. I mean, it's caused a lot of pain for my family. I've attempted suicide a bunch of times. I've put my mom and them through a lot. Just and I really have had a supportive family. The only reason I'm not dead right now is because of them. I mean,
You think it would, when you're a young kid like that, at least my opinion, you have such a, like in Fountain's position, you have such an opportunity to help people. I mean, you could do so much good, right? Because we're so lost, we're broken, we've lost everything. Like, do you think it would have been different if he actually would have cared or done the right thing? You think your life would have turned out different?
yeah, oh yeah. I think at maybe one point he had good intentions. You never know. I mean, what was crazy about him is one minute he was a good guy and one minute he wasn't. And until the truth, I wouldn't take none of this back for never. When I left there, I had separation anxiety, but that was with me. I wanted to go back. I didn't feel deserving of that shit. There was people there that had a lot more worse upbringings than I do. I mean, I did, and it breaks my heart that that I was able to go home to two parents that actually cared about me. I just wish I could have been a better man. That I put my parents to the ringers.
I don't think all of us realize it because we're in the moment. But I think if one person can listen to what you went through and relate to it, and kind of get the courage to overcome it, talk about it, to share, to let people know what they went through, then it's all worth it, right?